Hello and welcome to another Marketing Sherpa webinar. Today we're going to be talking about keywords, we're going to talk about customer personas, we're going to talk about content. Most importantly, we're going to talk about One Call Now. It's a great case study about a company that improved their search marketing and improved their overall results. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun with you today. So thanks for dialing in. We have joining us from Troy, Ohio, Jacob Baldwin and Christina Brownlee of One Call Now. Thanks for joining us, Jacob and Christina.
Thank you for having us.
Christina is the Director of Horizontal Marketing and Creative Services for One Call Now, which is a voice, text, and email notification company. And over the last 5 years, she has helped drive the company's 20 to 30% year-over-year growth. Very nice, Christina. And Jacob Baldwin is the Search Engine Marketing Manager for One Call Now, and one of his major projects was a radical redesign of the company's marketing site. We're going to take just a look at a little bit of what they did to redesign that site to help you with your own efforts today, specifically around search. But this is certainly not about me. It's not just about Jacob and Christina. It is about you. That's why we have #Sherpa webinar. It's your chance to ask your questions. Let us know what you want to know from Jacob and Christina. They are high-performing marketers, but they are your peers. Ask them the challenges they faced with keyword research, with search, with anything. We'll try to get as many answers in this time we have today. Also, share what has worked for you. We want to know what has worked. Search marketing, content marketing, anything. Share it on #Sherpa webinar. We're also going to be sharing a few related resources that will help. We have a great written case study with Jacob and Christina that goes into much more detail than we can go into today. And we have other SEO research and local search research. Go to #Sherpa webinar. You'll see all those tweets throughout the webinar. But we only have 30 minutes, so let's get into it. Let's start with why. Why did you want to change, Jacob and Christina? What was going on with your homepage? Why a redesign?
There were actually several reasons, all right? And as the screen is kind of showing right now, we had multiple calls to actions that were spread across different areas of the web page, and there was no clear conversion path. We had two different styles of navigation in two different areas of the web page. And from a more like search perspective, we were not utilizing header tags as well as we should have. And we primarily weren't really focusing on some of the more long-tail targeted keywords as we were primarily focusing on some of the short, broad keywords.
Okay, and then we look at a vertical page here too. Sorry, go on, Christina. Here's one of your vertical pages.
Yeah, the second piece of it is that our market had shifted. We were originally serving education, schools, sports teams. And as we started moving into the business realm and dealing with business continuity versus canceling practice due to weather, it became really important for us to have an elevated brand image. We really needed to make sure that we came across as serious in the space versus happy, approachable, kind of casual. So we changed our imagery, and we also changed our entire color palette and updated our logo.
And if you can hear Christina talk, she's thinking very strategically. So what you're looking at right now is some research from Marketing Sherpa about the top challenges and the top objectives in SEO. We're going to talk about increasing website traffic, increasing lead gen, and developing a strategy today. But developing a strategy, that's something I really want you to think about, because as you can see, only 27% of marketers said that was an objective for them, developing a SEO strategy. And Christina, that was really critical to what you did here, right?
Absolutely, it was paramount, and Jacob did an excellent job of doing that for us.
All right, let's get into one of our first questions from our audience. Suzanne, a marketing manager, wants to know, what are the tactics and time commitment required to develop buyer personas?
Well, this is kind of a tricky question, because what it takes to develop a buyer persona really is determined on the level of understanding you're able to achieve about the audiences that you serve, right? And so it's all about identifying the different roles of the decision makers for people in those organizations. And our structure here at One Call Now is we have our marketing communications team. We also have vertical marketing managers whose job it is to intimately know their audiences, what makes them tick, who are the decision makers, and what are the pain points that they're experiencing. And then we as the marketing communications department will work with our vertical marketing managers to then identify the key issues and pain points to really drive home when we create marketing pieces and personas for each of these roles.
Let's take a look at those personas. You took a really interesting approach here, right? When I think of personas, I think it's like Holly Homemaker, who's 40 years old, or Billy the IT manager, who is really worried about X or Y and might want to purchase this product. But you took a totally different approach with your personas. You want to tell us what you did and why you did it?
Sure. We are able to pretty much, what our service does is it works for pretty much everybody. It's not like trying to sell aluminum siding to somebody who lives in a brick house. Everybody needs to communicate. Everybody belongs into groups. And so what we needed to do is we needed to categorize people, not necessarily by who they were demographically, but by developing how they organize their sock drawers. That's how we call it. What are the most important drivers for their decision-making process? Are they humanistic? Do they want to identify with something? Do they want to look at testimonials and feel like they're part of, something that other people are doing? Do they need to feel like they belong? Are they methodical? Do they need to have a lot of documentation? Do they need to feel good about it because they have a significant amount of data from which to make their decision? Each one of the different personas, you can categorize any number of people, any number of roles within these 4 spaces.
We're going to break down those personas in just a minute and show those personas in action. But first, I want to thank our sponsor of today's webinar, AtTask, who makes this webinar free for you. AtTask is the only provider of cloud-based enterprise work management solutions for marketing teams. This provides a single central place to better manage and control the chaos of all marketing work, which improves visibility and productivity by eliminating wasted time dealing with fragmented, siloed tools and processes. With AtTask, marketing teams, managers, and executives receive visibility into work and campaign planning, prioritization, resourcing, and sequencing to help everyone work more efficiently toward achieving the organization's goals. AtTask has a broad range of Global 500 and other top marketing customers such as Nike, REI, Red Bull, Cisco, Adobe, and the House of Blues. To learn more, visit attask.com/marketing and join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag @TaskMKTG. It would be very good for you if you're one of the methodical people that Jacob and Christina were talking about. Also, you can meet Jacob, see him live in San Francisco at Lead Gen Summit. We're going to be there in just over a month. Jacob's going to be presenting more about his case study. He's also kind enough to do a roundtable about content marketing. That website, mechlabs.com/last chance. Hope to see you in San Francisco. Come up to me and say hi if you're there. So let's get into this. You had your personas, and then you looked at the verticals that you were approaching, and we're going to dive a little deeper. But when we're looking at these verticals, I noticed some of these are nonprofits, and we had a question here on #Sherpa webinar from Julia Rochi, and she wanted to know, are there any special guidelines for nonprofit content developers? And I just wonder, Jacob and Christina, did you approach nonprofits and for-profit businesses any differently?
You have to approach each one differently from the perspective of they have different needs that are being met. Larger businesses sometimes have deeper pockets than nonprofits. So, the way that we would position our keyword buys or whatever would be perhaps focused on their bottom line for nonprofits in that space, but not generally speaking.
Okay. That's helpful. And let's talk about, some of those keywords, because you start at the vertical level, then you broke it down to a sub-vertical level. We can see here education is not just one thing. Education is many different things. And that brings up a question from Stacy, an account manager in marketing. What keywords do you leverage when verticals have different focus words? So how did you approach your keywords in terms of your verticals?
Right. Well, primarily, we have a set of keywords that describes the functionality of our service, right? So, automated calling system, automated notification, et cetera, et cetera. And the general gist of a lot of our keyword optimization efforts revolve around these very kind of high-level terms. But when we get into the sub-vertical level, there are certain keywords by the very virtue of the language inside of said keyword phrase that lend themselves to specific markets, right? So, for instance, a parent notification keyword would be more fitting for an education market, more specifically K-12 or private schools, more so than, say, a Fortune 500 business, because, well, it just doesn't fit.
Okay, so then you had those subverticals, and then we see there were personas for each of those subverticals. And then this ties in greatly to a question we have here from Christian. Then you produce different content for those different types of personas. Christian wants to know, should modalities be considered with personas? And if so, how might this impact search? And that seems to be exactly what you did. You tried to present content to different type personas related to how they wanted to learn. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. So whenever we consider the different personas, we thought about what types of content would be more appealing to each individual persona. For instance, our competitive persona, the Kirk, he knows what he wants. He's like a bull. He wants to get it now and he wants to get it done. Marketing fluff doesn't really mean anything to him. So we offer him the shortest path possible to get to the solution that he wants. Whereas, for instance, your Dr. Bones is more humanistic, touchy-feely, so we provide him with testimonials and things of the such to kind of work that need that he is or she is experiencing. So yeah, absolutely, modifying the different types of content so they're more appealing to specific personas in each vertical was a major focus.
So, and Julie wants to know do you have different landing pages for each of these personas? So do they each have a specific landing page, or is it more how you presented the content on the pages?
This is one of the big balancing acts that we had, was that we wanted to make sure that we included everything. So the methodicals, they do deep dives. So we wanted to make sure that we had, for the spontaneous people, we wanted to make sure that we had enough calls to action and they were obvious and they were right there. So if they wanted to make a decision now, they could. Then you want to make sure that graphically you're appealing to the humanistic. They want to connect with whatever they're seeing. They want to have access to a testimonial or something new that you're doing that they're going to connect with. So if you look at the way that our website is set up now, it appeals to each one of those personas. But the people who are methodical and really want to do the deep dives, there are plenty of links for them to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So you don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but if you want to, it's there for you.
Excellent. So we see an example of that here for one of these personas, the highlight on the Buy Now button. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, okay, so we were kind of experiencing, we were kind of observing that some of the conversion activity in our sports market was beginning to maybe flatten out a little bit. So what we decided to do was to bring the actual final conversion, the actual purchase of our product, closer to the front of the funnel. And so that's exactly what we did with the Buy Now button. And actually, we found that we were able to somewhat restore, the line back into the trend line with the placement of that button there.
Okay, we have another question here from Mattis, a manager, as we look at another persona and how you targeted it. Should I concentrate selling on my customer persona's needs or their wants? And we had a bit of a philosophical discussion before this webinar about that. Jacob and Christina, what do you think?
Yeah, we certainly did, didn't we? It was, it's their wants, what they say, perception is reality. People's wants, almost, if you are able to build those sort of on a micro level, they become the macro solution. So if you have something and they say, oh, I want this, if you're able to bring them in based on their wants, then you can show them and expand their view to show them what their needs are and perhaps solve problems from, by going in the back door. Okay,
and then as we dive deeper into some of these different personas, I think some people seem impressed by the amount of content you're producing here. I know for some marketers, it's hard enough just to present one piece of content one way. So give us a sense of that range of content. We have a question here from Josh. They seem to be targeting a wide range of keywords. How did their content align with such a wide range of keywords?
I think that was probably a product of serving a wide variety of markets, right? So whenever this whole initiative came about, we did and still do service six vertical markets, right? And so while a lot of the terms that are used to describe a service such as ours are kind of all-encompassing and very, very very much top level, very functional based. Each of those target markets do lend themselves to having market specific messaging and keyword additions for each individual audience that we're serving. So I think that's probably a product of that, is just targeting a wide array of audiences.
And we're going to get into how Jacob and Christina found those keywords in just a moment, but let's talk about the content a little more. We have a question: what are some of the ways you explore how to locate your audience using data from your site and blog? That's a question from Johnny, a digital media manager. I think something he's talking about here is how to find inbound links, who's linking to you. And for your content creation strategy, along with your link building strategy, Christina, you focused on partnering, huh?
We do, actually. We have a director of partner alliances, but our vertical marketing managers were the originators of that. And by reaching out to, different partnering groups and making sure that we're aligning with their needs, then that allows us to have more feet on the street, more, they're doing the legwork from it. So we actually have banners that go onto some of our clients' websites, and those provide link backs to us, but we don't actively go out and do link building campaigns.
Okay, and we have a question here from Joshua. This may be too deep and too technical that we don't want to dive into it, but at a very high level, are you using dynamic content pegged to each persona, and how are you driving this? CRM system connected to a CMS? So is there any magic behind the scenes, or are these basic landing pages and that people are just finding through search?
Well, he may have peered into the crystal ball a little bit there, but at this point in time, they're pretty much, we identify the audience that we're going after, the role of the decision maker, and then we tailor the content towards that from the beginning. Moving forward, dynamic content is definitely something that we're looking at, but we gotta walk before we can run,
Absolutely. One way to run, and anytime we're talking about search or anything marketing, it always comes down to dirty, filthy lucre. It always comes down to money. So we got a question here from Judy, a director of marketing. Is there a minimum threshold of monthly spend where the campaign should not even begin until it meets that level? And so Jacob and Christina, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you about your specific budgets, but we have some MarketingSherpa research here about the general breakdown of SEO budgets. And can you give us a sense of how you invested in SEO and how you invested in search in general?
For the most part, looking at the graph on the screen, we don't necessarily combine our department spend with the budget allocated for salaries, right? So whenever we talk about department spend, it's purely what are our people spending and what are they spending it on. And so I kind of broke it out here a little bit, and it looks kind of like this. So about 73% of our search spend is actually spent on paid search campaigns. 17% spent on software, and then we've got the other 10% divided between consultation and agency services, and then others. So just kind of thought leadership and things like that.
Okay. Let's get into keywords now. Obviously a hot topic when we're talking about search. We had a question from Chris, a senior technical writer, about best practices about keywords and which keywords to use. And Jacob, you had a specific hypothesis about keyword length and then found out some surprising information. Can you tell us more about that?
I kind of had a thought, and I built a hypothesis around it that it made sense to me at the time, and maybe it still does. I just need to do some more tests or research. But the longer a search term, the more, the higher the likeliness, or the higher the conversion rate will be for that keyword, right? So the longer tailed search term is, in my mind, more targeted, and therefore should be closer to the bottom of the funnel and more susceptible to actually completing a conversion action. And I decided to kind of take this hypothesis and go into our analytics tool and put it to the test. And so what I actually found out is I tested the number of conversions and the conversion rates of 2-word search queries, 3-word, 4-word, 5-word, 6-word, all the way up until 8 words, right? 8 words in the search query. And I actually found some surprising results that, the 3-word search query, here's the disclaimer, 3-word unbranded search query, all right? Our company name is One Call Now, so that would make complete sense if I was including branded keywords, but I wasn't. So 3-word unbranded search queries generated about 199% more traffic than the 4-word search queries, and the 4-word search queries actually had a higher conversion rate. Okay, so 3-word search queries had more conversions, but the 4-word search query had a higher conversion rate, much higher than the 5, 6, 7, or 8-word search queries. And so that completely made my hypothesis, for all intent and purposes for this discussion, null and void until I can find a different angle to attack it.
Well, that's the keyword link. Let's take a look at how you select keywords. Michelle, a manager of promotions in e-commerce, wants to know how much time is spent researching keywords, and Vincent, an MD, wants to know, easy question, how do you determine the right keywords for your business in a very competitive international environment? So let's get to this process. How did you start?
Right, okay, so from the beginning, we actually hired a digital marketing consultant who then provided us with a very exhaustive list of keywords. And this list of keywords had search volume, it had a level of competition. If we wanted to purchase that keyword via pay-per-click or paid search campaign, how much we can expect to pay for each click for that keyword. And so essentially what we did is worked with vertical marketing managers to identify the markets and subverticals, or the verticals and subverticals that we were going to be looking at, and then kind of finding a balance between competition, search volume, and how much we would expect to pay for each click in a paid search campaign, and then selecting keywords like that. So that's essentially how we selected the keywords, and how the site structure came about was we were able to create content silos in which all of our web text content can live, and then we could interlink each of those to create what I like to call like a super page. I don't know if that's a technical term or not, but it's essentially like a big mass of content that is highly targeted towards a specific audience about a specific subject. And so that's what we were able to achieve by grouping our keywords kind of in the same vein as how our vertical markets were structured.
And then one thing we talked about too, in terms of how you monitor this performance, and that's what I love about having a real marketer on the phone and not just a consultant, not just talking about these best practices here. Jacob's going to talk about what he's really doing. I said, how did you monitor these? And he said, look, I don't have the time to monitor each and every keyword and, look at remarketing and optimize our site for conversion. So what is your focus on monitoring the keywords, Jacob?
Right. So pretty much, if I notice that there's a significant increase in traffic, or if there's a significant decrease, then we have another tool that we like to use that I could then go in and see how, on a broad 30-day level, what are the traffic that our keywords are driving, how is the rank fluctuating, things like that. But more so than not, I like to focus on the long term, because an organic optimization is not something that's going to occur overnight, right? So there's got to be content created, there's got to be internal links built and external links built, and there's got to be people learning about terms, because English language is an evolving language. So if we want to establish a market for a specific keyword that we're trying to define, then that's going to take time. And what the best way to do that is just by looking at organic search traffic on an aggregate level, rather than slicing and dicing your data, splitting hairs down to the what happened yesterday and what are we doing today. So that's really what I like to focus on.
Yeah, speaking of evolving, another thing that's evolving are Google algorithms. And we have a question here from April, an SEO and SMO manager. What online tools do you use? What changes have you detected in search algorithms post-Panda Penguin update? So I want to ask you for any specific brand names, but talking about the post-Panda Penguin updates, here's an example of one of your top ranks. If you're watching at home, all of the links above it, those are paid search. You might not be able to see the shaded box, but this is a top rank, and it is a video. So how does that relate to the Google updates?
Well, okay, so the video is a result. I think it's a universal results. So we've optimized the title of this video and the description of the video and the web page that it's on. We've optimized the URL. We've got appropriate keyword densities, and we've got proper use of header tags on that actual page, and as well as in the meta description you can see there to get that video to rank there. And so that's primarily what I have to say about universal analytics.
Well, let's look at meta description, a few of those keyword elements. We don't have time to go through each one of them, but yeah, meta descriptions were important in the changes you made. Using strong tags to highlight keywords in the body copy, page titles, making sure the page titles were correct. But I want to get here to, I think, an element that many people don't use, image alt tags. You want to tell me about how you used image alt tags?
Well, image alt tags are actually designed to help visually impaired people actually browse the internet. And what I find a lot of people don't quite know is that you can actually optimize these so they show up in Google image results as well. And this kind of parlays back into that universal results discussion we were having earlier. So if you optimize your image alt tags to have important value-adding, benefit-laden statements, as well as the functional text that goes along to providing the function that alt tags truly are supposed to have, can go a long way as well.
Can we also look at URL structure? H1 tags here, something else you did, but I want to ask you about URL structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. URLs, the structure of a URL, or for all intent and purposes, the file directory that your website is housed in, right? That's all a URL is, okay? So this does two things, right? Number one, it gives the user a sense of like orientation. Where am I in the website? Where did I go? And where can I go from here? What is this website about? It kind of creates context. And number two, it's one of the most important signals for search engine robots as to what this web page is about, right? So if this web page is about automated messaging, and that's in the URL, then that is a really strong signal that is sent to the robots, and not just robots, to the end users and the users on our website, that, hey, this website, if I'm trying to learn about automated messaging, if I'm trying to display a result for automated messaging, there's a good possibility that this website really is about automated messaging.
And also we have a question here from Julia. Do you go by any best practices for keyword density for the page?
Well, that's kind of funny because it seems like everybody has their own idea of what best practices are, okay? And anybody can open up a blog and title it Marketing Best Practices, and then someone is going to read that blog and think that they've got, the inside information. But really what it comes down to is what works for you and your efforts, and if you're getting results, then there it is. And you got to make sure that you're keeping everything white hat and above the table as far as what's acceptable, what are acceptable standards for optimizing your site in the robot's eyes too.
All right, we have about 1 minute left, but let's talk about the results. Julie wanted to know, what are some metrics you use to measure the success of your SEO strategy? So tell us about some of the results. And as you can see on this slide, there's a lot more to this case study than just the organic search. And unfortunately, we only had 30 minutes today. We wanted to hone on the organic search, but Jacob's going to talk about more at Lead Gen Summit. So how do you measure the success of your SEO efforts, Jacob?
Okay, so it came about, we had, baseline performance levels. And I think, the performance level that everybody thinks about for a website is traffic, right? How much traffic am I driving? How much traffic am I attracting, as some people like to say. But on top of that, there's something that is much more, I don't want to say much more important, but is equally as important as how much traffic you're driving is what kind of conversion activity are you driving on your website. Because if you're attracting all this traffic that's coming through the doors because you're optimizing for keywords, but nobody knows what to do once they get there, then that traffic is not really, you can't monetize it anyway. So figuring out how to optimize your website for conversions is one of the most important metrics that I can think of right now. On top of that, knowing where your traffic is coming from, right? So if your efforts in organic search optimization are paying off, or if your refinement of your paid search campaign is paying off, then those are both certainly things to take note of, because that provides you, attribution. Where should I invest my time? Where am I getting the best results? And then at the end of the day, it's a question about revenue, right? So how much revenue was my program driving last year? How much revenue am I driving this year? Pre-change and post-change.
And Jacob will be talking more about conversion optimization at Lead Gen Summit as well. But with just 1 minute left, Jacob and Christina, what are the top takeaways you would give your fellow marketers to hit the ground with the next day and the next week to help improve their own search efforts?
Make sure that you have good content, understand who your personas are, understand who you're marketing to. If you have a good understanding and a good handle on those things, then make sure that your SEO endeavors are aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely got to agree with the good content part. I know that's like, you hear it all the time, but I can't stress the importance enough. Having great content is truly, truly valuable. On top of that, understanding that perfection is impossible. It's like in Maslow's hierarchy. You're never going to reach actualization, right? Your site is never going to be fully optimized. So just kind of coming to terms with that and knowing that there's always going to be something else to do is really kind of an important realization to have. Driving the online conversion, just like this says, is critical in lead attribution, right? So if you lose the ability to attribute what efforts are driving what results, then you lose the ability to forecast and to spend your budget wisely in the future. And finally, it comes down to the user experience, right? So we're not optimizing websites for search engine robots. We're not optimizing websites for these spiders that are going all around the website. We're optimizing the website for the end user, and if the end user is happy, then they're going to tell people about it, and then that is just going to resonate within the community, and it's going to spread organically like that as well.
Yeah, I like that, Jacob. Perfection is impossible. Again, that's a benefit of not just having some consultants on here telling you best practices. These are real marketers in the trenches every day. Today you learned about what they prioritize. Now it's up to you to decide what you have to prioritize and help us prioritize these webinars and improve them. Please take the survey that comes up when this webinar is over. Thanks for joining us today.